Hey, I just wanted to say before I post this video to excuse my voice. I'm a little dehydrated, I ain't gonna lie. I've been in the sun, haven't been hydrating properly, in addition to having some allergy symptoms. So my voice is a little raspy, but yeah, it is what it is. And I hope you enjoy this book review on Fluent Forever. And if there's some, okay, so this week's highlight for my Spanish journey is that I read the book Fluent Forever by Gabriel Weiner. So the basic premise of the book is that it's supposed to teach you how to learn a language fast and, it's supposed to teach you how to learn a language fast and forever so that you won't forget it. It's very flashcard intensive. I do like the way that he tells you to create your flashcards, but I'm not really a flashcard driven person. However, I did make a couple of them the way he suggested, and I like the process, and I think that I won't forget the few words that I did. However, he recommends doing it in a SRS system, either with regular flashcards like index cards or using an app like Anki. And I did not like the Anki app. So will I do all his flashcard stuff? I don't know. So some of the other stuff that I got, I took a few notes. According to this book, my level is a false beginner, and a false beginner is people who have forgotten what they've learned. And at this point, I think I've recovered the stuff that I've learned, and I'm learning new stuff. And I am very grateful for my high school teacher who drilled in my head present tense in Spanish to where I never forgot it. And so it seems like I'm further along than I am, because I still remember that stuff from almost 30 years ago. If only she had taught me the past tense and future tense, you know, I'll be real good at it. What else? And so, by the way, I got it from the library. I didn't buy it. So if you're interested, you could probably get it from your library too. I should have taken more notes. So another suggestion that he gave from this book is for me to get a frequency dictionary, a monolingual Spanish dictionary, and a thematic vocabulary dictionary. I know that I have English. Oh, that's another big thing he's big on, is not putting English on your flashcards. Like, have everything in Spanish. Excuse me. Oh, and another thing that I think that I already knew I was leaning towards, but that I'm not ready to watch full movies and stuff in Spanish because I'm not that fluent. And so one of the things he talks about is comprehensible input, is like getting it in. And then if it's too far in advance for you, then you won't advance as quickly as if you did stuff that was more on your level and basically mastered that. And that's pretty much what I had decided to do anyway, which is kind of why I had stopped using madrigals, which I guess I'll talk about that in another video. But I've basically been going back and trying to do, aside from reading this book, trying to do stuff that's more on my level, just mastering that versus keep on advancing without really grasping everything. Another thing that he said was create stories to learn all the verb forms, which I think it'll make it a better, more memorable experience for me instead of just rote memorization. Another thing that I kind of do, but I need to do it more, is that he said to use writing to test out your knowledge and find your weak points. For example, use example sentences in your grammar book as models and write about your interests, and to submit your writing to an online exchange community. Turn every correction you receive into a flashcard. Told you he's flashcard heavy. And this way you'll find and fill in whatever grammar and vocabulary you're missing. Oh, and then another thing he said was learn the top 1,000 words. One thing that stuck for me from Madrigal's is that she says that if you master the verbs, then you can master the Spanish language. And so I haven't looked up what are the top 1,000 Spanish words yet, but I was thinking that if I go, I'm gonna Google the top 100 Spanish verbs and see how many I already know, and then start from there. Maybe that'll be my goal for this upcoming week. One of my goals, I should say. And so for your flashcards, he says, like if you're gonna do flashcards, the flashcard systems, he says use the simple sentences from your monolingual dictionary and then pair those with images. That's what I didn't talk about. So I do like his flashcard thing. So his flashcard model is basically you find an image that means something to you. You put that on one side, and then on the reverse side, you put the answer in Spanish. So for instance, if you're trying to learn the word cat, you don't just put gato and then cat. You put gato on one side, and then you find a picture of a cat that resonates with you. So that anytime you draw up, you're trying to look for the word cat, you have a better mental image to help you remember the word. Or so for instance, if you're trying to learn the word mother or mom, you can put a picture of your mom on the front and then the word madre on the back. So they're more personal. And that's another thing he talked about, which I really agree with, is that learning the language is a very personal journey for everybody. And I know that because something that, like for instance, like somebody was saying, oh, I use this online program, and there's no way that I, knowing myself, could only use something that's online, because I prefer old school books, and I prefer a variety of stuff, but I prefer old school books versus having to be attached to a computer to learn Spanish. Another thing he's big on, which I didn't highlight or didn't make a post-it for, is that he's big on immersion programs. He talked a lot about but he gives suggestions on ones you can go to in person, and he doesn't seem to like the week immersion programs, which I actually did a week immersion program that I might do a video about. That's actually how I kicked off my learning Spanish journey. I just went to a school for a week, and I did pretty good. But maybe that'll be another video that I could talk about as my immersion experience. And he talks about, when you get your comprehensible input, he said after TV, go to audiobooks and podcasts and radio shows. The reason why he said do TV first is because you get to see the people, and so that'll help you try to decipher what they're saying. Oh, and he's anti-subtitles. He's basically saying listen, because he was saying that it's so much easier to read a language than to hear it. And I totally agree with that. So then I have in my notes, I have watch TV or movies in target language without subtitles. And if you need help with, to help you kind of comprehend, he said, read summaries before you watch whatever you're going to watch. So then that way you'll have a gist of what's going on. What else did I learn from this book? Oh, he said, learning a language makes it harder to think, which I totally agree, because you're constantly, for me personally, how this applies to me is that now I'm even fishing for words in English. And sometimes when I'm even talking in English, I have like Spanish going through my head, like, oh, I could say this in Spanish. So then it makes me slower, because I'm trying to process and figure out which language to use with whom. Like I was talking to some of my coworkers the other day, and they speak Arabic. And I was about to start talking Spanish to them, but it was like, oh yeah, we speak English with them. So yeah, I definitely agree, is that it makes it harder to think, but in a good way, not in a bad way, obviously. He gives some good, he went through a couple of pages of the benefits of learning a language, which they were, it's always good to be bilingual or multilingual, polyglot. I don't think I'm going to be a polyglot, but we'll see. Oh, and this one, another thing that resonated with me, he said, the more ways you study, the same info, the better you know the material. So basically, like when he talks about his flashcard system, he talks about like, even if you want to write the word, I'll just say cat, like to hit it from many different angles. I forget all the different ways he said it, but it's almost like I can talk about when I used to try to teach my children math. It's like you can say, like, the more ways you teach them or a person to do the same thing, but from different perspectives, excuse me, then you're more prepared and you know the material better. So it's not like you don't have to just go at it one way. You don't have to say 2 + 2 is, or that's not a good example because it's the same. But basically do a bunch of simple things, do the same thing a bunch of different ways, so then that way you have mastery of it. I hope that explains it. And then he gave the Foreign Service Institute's fluency rating and how long it would take. He was saying that it should technically take 600 class hours for me to become fluent in Spanish. And so how I broke that down is, excuse me, 52 weeks. If I had 52 weeks, which is a year, if I did 7 hours a week, that's 364 hours, which is not 600 obviously, but that should get me to intermediate. And that's my goal, is to be, I say that's my goal as of right now, is to be a confident intermediate speaker. And I say confident intermediate speaker because I've taken 2 tests, actually even before where I am now, and I tested intermediate. I don't know how. I'm thinking that I'm pretty good at taking tests, and a lot of it was reading, and I did some verbal, but I can figure it out. And another thing I think is because when I was teaching my children when they were younger, they took Latin, so that also helps me figure out words. And so if I were to tell my level, I would probably say that I'm a confident advanced beginner, but my goal, I guess by April of next year, would be to be a confident intermediate level. So that's it. Fluent forever. Oh, do I regret reading the book? No, not necessarily, but it was very wordy and I toyed with putting it down several times, but I wanted to see what he said because I was thinking that maybe he would have some great tips to help me on this Spanish journey. And I think that's it. I don't regret reading it, but I also don't necessarily recommend it unless you're willing to do flashcards.